Hi, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, November 20th, and I'm Melissa Palmer. I'm VMIS33 on Twitter, and you're watching episode 3 of the Current Status podcast. I'm here with two of my co-hosts and a very special guest tonight. Agent P, would you like to introduce yourself and your wine this fine evening?
I'm Pumla Schmidt, also known as Exchange Goddess on the Twitters. And tonight we're just going to go simple with a Chardonnay. And I also have sweet potato French fries today in honor of the OpenStack event that was in France, a couple weeks ago. So I'll be having French fries and Chardonnay.
Yum.
Yeah.
You need to send some of those to me. So, anyways, I'm Teresa Miller. I am at 24/7 IT Connect on Twitter, and I am looking forward to this evening, and we're going to find a way to get some sweet potato fries to me.
As I mentioned, tonight we have a very special guest, Emad Younis. He both has fond memories of myself and Agent P in Las Vegas, though not at the same time. It was two separate trips. But before we start talking with Emad, we want to bring up something that happened this week that was kind of big in the IT world. Microsoft Azure experienced its first major outage this week. What did you ladies think of that?
Oops.
Who wants to go first? I think we're all jumping out of our chairs to talk about this one.
I think that was just a big oops. I mean, according to them, they did test the upgrade, but I mean, it kind of leads into our topic today of, data protection, business continuance, DR, backup. My thought is, what happened? Where was there? Did they have a backup plan? Did they have a business continuance plan? In the event the update didn't go right, what were they going to do? Obviously, they didn't have one. Or if they did, it didn't work. So, kind of makes you go, oops. That's my thought.
Well, it's a pretty big oops, though, for anybody that was using those services. The outage wasn't it almost like 12 hours, 11, 12 hours?
Well, I mean, if businesses are running their whole enterprise in Azure, I mean, that's possibly millions of dollars lost. No one can work if your Active Directory's in Azure. Your ERP systems are there. I mean, that's a huge loss.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal, and ironically enough, the patches they put out were to increase the performance of their storage. But what they ended up having to do to fix everything was to basically do rolling reboots of all their storage environments to fix everything. So it took them, like Teresa said, 12 hours to roll through everything, reboot everything, and that caused more outages for even more people that maybe weren't experiencing issues initially.
What's their storage? That's all I'm asking. What are they using for their storage back then if they're rebooting everything? Just saying.
I think they had to revert to their previous line of code or whatever they had been running before the outage because whatever they deployed didn't work so well.
Well, I think when something like this happens, too, it goes back to the strategy and the SLAs we talked about last time a little bit, too. Can a business endure this type of outage if it's where their primary source of business is running? It's going to make companies really step back and think twice about doing some of these cloud-based services. So Microsoft is going to have to step things up and prove to people that this isn't going to keep happening.
Oh, definitely. I mean, people are gun-shy already, so something like this kind of makes you, I mean, I would agree, like, do I really want to do this? 12 hours? That's, I mean, 30 minutes, yeah, that you can kind of go, okay, somebody messed up, but 12 hours that's a whole business day lost.
Yeah, that's a lot. Emad, what do you think of the recent Azure outage?
So, back to your whole SLA, comment. I think if a business is putting all their eggs in one basket per se, they should at least have a plan of action based on, okay, if there is an outage, can we withstand, 30 minutes? And if the answer is no, then they need to back out, especially in a cloud situation.
So what is the, let's say I'm a business and I want to go 100% to the cloud. Do I pick two cloud providers? Do I go back to my kind of, I used to have a 2 data center strategy with one being prod, one being DR. Do I have a prod cloud and a DR cloud that are different service providers? What do you guys think of that idea?
That's actually pretty interesting when I never thought about it that way. Because you would think your cloud provider is going to provide that DR, that high availability strategy for you with multiple data centers. That's interesting. That's wow.
But if you look at what's just happened,
Yeah.
Accidents happen, disasters happen, things happen.
But it does kind of align with the thought process of, well, maybe I keep my primary data center, physical, on-site, whatever, or virtualized, use your VMware, use your Citrix, whatever, on-site, on-prem, but then maybe the backup data center is in the cloud, whereas in this case then, unless there had been some sort of disaster that you needed that secondary data center, it's more likely you wouldn't have felt any impact.
So basically a hybrid cloud scenario is
Exactly.
Bingo. Yeah. I mean, something like what happened this week definitely pushes the hybrid scenario more because the cloud can be your DR, your backup. Back up your environment to the cloud in the event your on-premise location goes down.
It's a domino effect, right? Your backups can affect your RPO and your RTO, right? So you have to make sure one's in line before the other one.
So that brings an interesting point. I know a lot of us are concerned about backup in general. Do we have backups? Do we have backups? But are people worrying about what happens if I need those backups? Are they worrying about the restore and the return to service from my backups? Or are we too focused on the wrong thing, do you think?
Well, I think, what are we using our backups for, right?
Right.
We're using them for retention, depending on the solution, and we're also using them to make sure that we actually do have a backup in case of failure, right? But we also have to look a little bit deeper and see past the virtual machine within the application, right? Some applications actually have built-in redundancy, right?
James.
I'm sorry. What application is that again? What?
Exchange at SQL.
Oh.
Never heard of it.
Never heard. Yeah, this thing called, it's really small. I'm not sure if it'll really catch on yet, but yeah. If you guys ever heard of it, let me know. Yeah, I would agree. Different scenarios. SQL has the same type of concept, high availability within the application. VMware has the same type of concept too. The clustering, with the vMotion. It's just I think it just varies on your business needs and the requirements.
The other thing is, are you leveraging? Are you going to have to leverage your existing infrastructure, or are you going to actually have to go out and look at other vendors and providers?
That's a good point.
Right.
For example, if you're using NetApp, are you actually using the VSD within your virtual infrastructure?
You should be. If you're not.
Hey there. You should.
No bias there.
Just a little.
What's out there?
Just a little.
Also, when it comes to data protection, backups, snapshots, I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm doing a backup. I've got snapshots. My opinion, snapshots are not backups. What do you think, Emad? I think we kind of touched a little bit on our vMware talk about snapshots.
So snapshots are just kind of a point in time, right? That moment is kind of encapsulated right then and there. Anything beyond that is not there, right? So I would say more use it for testing purposes, but not as a permanent backup solution, right? But most people actually use them as backups, and that's a big no-no.
Snapshots are not backups, people.
Right.
No, especially not taking 50 million snapshots of the same VM and thinking that it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert,
Good
that's
luck
not going to
deleting
work
all
well.
those screenshots, right?
Well, that brings up another question. Do people actually know what they're backing up, what they're protecting? I think if we did some type of survey, we'd probably find that either they're not backing up the right data, or they're backing up too much and backing up everything. Maybe it's overboard or not enough.
Well,
You're right.
are you doing full backups? Are you doing, are you dedupes? I mean, where are you, getting the most bang for your buck?
Well, I've seen Oracle backups to do full Oracle backups of their databases every single night, 9 terabytes. Every night's a full backup. Why? Yeah, I've always been told because that's the way Oracle works. Well, that just doesn't seem efficient. There's other ways of possibly doing this that's a little bit more efficient where you don't have to do a full backup of 9 terabytes of data every night.
And is your backup flexible, right? So
That's key.
Can it also not just manage, let's say, a VMware infrastructure, but I hate to say this, but Hyper-V or something like that, right? Is it flexible enough to be used all around?
You make a very good point. Very good point, because let's say your whole data center explodes, and you've got to recover, and you don't have the existing hardware, but you have those tapes. And you recover that onto something else.
Well, if we think about, because we're all like, I'm wearing an OpenStack hoodie, you're wearing an OpenStack shirt. Ahmad, you were at the OpenStack Summit. I mean, think about OpenStack. Really, you have a compute instance, and it's a container. It's garbage. None of your data is going to live in that instance. It's all going to be on your block storage. So they kind of have the right notion there of my VM is just a VM. It's just a shell for all the other important data. So if we're looking more at our data and trying to get towards a model like that, where we don't care about the VM, we can put this app in any VM or any container, connect this volume to anything we need to get it back. That's kind of, I think, almost a better strategy than being so focused on the virtual machine or the physical hardware.
It is. It puts more focus now on the storage side, right?
Right.
So now the question is, are you backing up your volumes?
And how are you backing them up?
Right. And as far as storing them.
I just took a snapshot of my volume. Isn't that a backup? And I'm replicating it to my other data center.
But in the event of a DR instance, how do you access that backup, that snapshot? How do you access that snapshot and turn that snapshot back into a working set of data, a working application, a working VM? That's what a lot of people are not going down the path of thinking. They're continuing, oh, I got everything backed up, it's good. It's there's something in this magic box off-site. But how do you recover from it?
Well, even backing up to tape in some cases isn't necessarily the right way to go. I mean, there are solutions where, you can replicate your backup data to a totally different site. I mean, and then other options might even be cloud.
Right.
Could I store my backups in the cloud, a replicated copy? So when you're talking about getting that data off, just having it on site, and I have my backups. There are other options out there that I mean, if you're willing to make the spend, of course.
Oh yeah,
will protect you.
A lot of the backup vendors are providing those options now. Veeam does it, Commvault does it as well, where you can send your backups to the cloud, which I think is a great concept. I totally lost my train of thought now. I'm thinking of the cloud.
Backing up to the cloud. It's cloudy over there.
I just ate a French fries, so there you go. There's my ditzy moment for the night.
Use actually one product that they actually are agnostic whether it comes to the hypervisor. So I think they do a good job there. They actually, I think, even go back and check your backups, right? So you're almost kind of guaranteed that your backup is going to be rock solid.
What product was that? I didn't hear.
Veeam?
Veeam.
Oh, Veeam. Okay.
Yeah, I will say I've always been a Commvault person, but
Commvault is pretty cool.
I still love Commvault. For all you Commvault people out there, still love it. But I like Veeam too. The fact that it's very simple to use and deploy.
Very flexible.
Yeah, very flexible. Commvault, still love you. A little clunky. It takes a little time to get used to, but
Like $1 every time you say Commvault?
Yeah, Liam's probably going, oh my God. No, they're both really good products, and they both, do slightly the same thing but different. Commvault has, it could do physical servers. Veeam, not officially quite there. They don't back up physical servers. They back up physical endpoints, though. But that's a whole nother. That's
another discussion.
Yeah. Rick's like, oh my God.
No, I think it all goes back to your SLAs, right? What do you have in mind? And your point about tape and all that. I mean, can you get your environment back up and running within your SLAs or even faster, right? I mean, basically at the end of the day, backups are the unsung hero of the data center.
Oh, they absolutely are. They absolutely are. And how many times do you have a conversation with someone, they're like, oh, I'm replicating this data every 15 minutes, and you ask them why? And they look at you and they go, because it's always been replicated every 15 minutes. I'm like, but does it need to be? What's your RTO or RPO? What is your business case? Why are you doing this? What is the data?
I totally agree.
So, oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say a lot of times, they're replicating this data, and they don't even know what they're replicating, but they're replicating.
Exactly. They don't know. They just know they're sending it, and that's how it's always been.
Our whole stand's being replicated.
Every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So replicating our whole stand, and then you go, how many snapshots of that volume are you replicating? How many cat and dog pictures have you just sent over the wire? Yeah. And
really?
Go ahead.
An organization should step back every, I don't know, like every year, maybe every couple years, and take a close look at what their requirements are. Take a look at why they are doing things, and then potentially make changes based upon that. Plus, technology is changing all the time, so they can look at those newer options.
I just actually went through that this past year. My previous company, we actually went through a process, and we reevaluated our backup process, the procedures, what we were doing, how we were backing up. It was a good exercise for us. We learned that there were some things that we didn't have to physically back up all the time. We could take snapshots of it, even though that wasn't a backup. It was a clone. We also realized that we could just do replication of certain servers. Our tier 1 apps, that's the ones that we really cared about. We backed up, we sent them off-site. And through the exercise, we also rewrote our procedures and our policies. It took about 6-7 months to do. I complained all the way through, but I definitely felt it was a great exercise, though, because we really got to see what we were backing up.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important to do every once in a while for every business to step back and do that, on a regular time period, because your needs are changing and growing and evolving, and your processes need to move along with it. Your SLAs need to move along with it. Really, that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
I think also businesses should take the time and do restore processes. Well, restore processes.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because if you can't restore it, your backup's kind of useless.
Exactly. You've got years.
Yeah.
Have you ever restored your data? What good is it if you can't restore?
You hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, it's only backup. Who cares?" But guess what? In the event of a failure, that backup system you didn't care about becomes your most critical system. If you can't restore, you're dead in the water.
Yep. How are you going to restore that virtual machine? What's your process for a physical server? Is your Exchange database going to recover? How about your SQL databases? I'm sure I missed a million other things, but yeah, that should all be documented and ready to go.
Mm-hmm. I think we might have had some technical difficulties and lost our special guest. Hopefully, he'll be back shortly.
Oh. Uh-oh.
He's at the hotel, though.
Yes.
There
Here
he is.
I knew he'd be back. He wouldn't just leave us like that. Somebody was testing their backups and the restore process clearly and sucking up Emad's bandwidth.
Yeah.
Are you back with us now, Emad?
Yeah, sorry, this hotel Wi-Fi.
I think we all know how hotel Wi-Fi goes.
Yeah, I should have had my backup plan in place.
Exactly. Perfect example, right?
Yeah,
So,
where's Wi-Fi?
So let's talk about a couple other things that went on this week. Did everybody hear about computer engineer Barbie? Anybody?
Oh,
Anybody?
Just a tad bit. I definitely think that was just bad taste. Awful.
You know,
it really sets a bad example for the young women, young girls out there. That,
it's funny.
And help me.
It's funny. Computer engineer Barbie, like the doll, actually came out a couple years ago, and I went crazy like trying to find it. And I bought myself 2 of them because I'm like, this is just so cool. Look, Barbie's an engineer. You who didn't see, they came out with a storybook for computer engineer Barbie, and a lot of it had Barbie messing things up, frying her computer, not being able to program and needing help from the guys, and it just didn't go over that well. It wasn't as empowering as I think we all had hoped it to be.
Yeah.
So part of the response out there was people making their own computer engineer Barbie panels and putting them all over Twitter and the internet. So I, of course, did one of, Barbie doing an OpenStack presentation and showing her teacher, and Barbie installing vSphere and showing Brian how to use host profiles and stuff like that. So that was interesting. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think their intentions were good. I think that they meant for it to be something good, and I think if you put yourself in the mind of a child reading it, you don't pick up on those things necessarily. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of adults did key into it, like we all did, and there is that example of how she said she did it on her own, but she didn't, and so it really gave a mixed message. So
I took it as, well, what kind of example is that setting for young girls? You're reading a story where she's messing up all the time. She's asking the guys to help her do something. Barbie's supposed to be empowering. She wasn't doing that. So it's definitely a poor example.
I'm kind of worried about astronaut Barbie right now and how well she's going to fare on her trip to Mars, because trusting my computer engineer Barbie, I'm feeling kind of bad for her. I'm not sure if she's going to make it.
Yeah, astronaut Barbie. She'll blow up the space station or something like that. Who knows? What do you think, Emad? You've got a daughter.
So, I always tell my daughter, I try to raise her to be very independent, right? To rely on herself and not have to rely on. I always tell her you don't need to rely on a guy, basically, right? Mm-hmm. Be very independent and know that you can do anything, and you can actually even do it better. So shoot for the moon and go from there. So I'm excited when she says she wants to be like a neurosurgeon. I mean, it makes me proud.
That's really awesome.
That is cool. Okay, next on our list. So Microsoft released an out-of-band security patch for Windows this week. Affected platforms and was rated critical that you install it immediately because it allowed for escalation of privileges. That's usually not a good thing.
Yeah, the whole immediately thing, that kind of scares me a little bit. I mean, you typically don't just apply a patch just because it's there, right?
Right.
I mean, there needs to be some testing in place first before you just kind of go willy-nilly and apply it on, thousands of machines.
Well, the trend that Microsoft's been
just because they
they've just been sending out patches after patches. Oh, throw this on here, throw this on here. I know from the Exchange side, a lot of patches haven't been thoroughly tested and ended up breaking up or breaking more servers than, more services than intended. So yeah, when they sent this out, I was kind of like, well, we definitely need the patch, but what else is it going to break?
Right.
I'm sure that's...
And I had read something, too, that just kind of implied that they marked it as critical, well, not even because of the vulnerability that it closed, but because it required a restart.
Yes, also required a restart.
Kind of, yeah,
so you're gonna blast out a patch right now that requires you to reboot your whole environment.
Yeah.
I know more information has come out, but when they initially announced it, they weren't really saying much other than everybody go do this right now because it's really, really important.
So everyone is rebooting their servers overnight. That's what every sysadmin was doing last night. Was patching their
running Linux, right?
Yeah.
This is true. This is true.
Patching all their Windows servers last night and rebooting. That's why every IT person is probably extremely exhausted this morning.
Is that why everybody was just dead on their feet today? Because like everybody I encountered today, we were all just like dead on our feet.
Everybody patching last night. Even Twitter's was really quiet today.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It wasn't as active as usual. I guess everybody was still tired. I don't really know.
Well, Twitter and Facebook, right, is the new news media, right? So
yes.
Not happening.
So that actually gives us a great segue into talking about Facebook introducing their new data center fabric. They're telling us all about their next generation Facebook data center network because we know Facebook, Google, they all have just these basically crazy, insane data centers that they have engineers upon engineers upon engineers to do all this cool stuff for us.
I take it as Facebook, they pretty much shifted from software to hardware vendor now. They are their own hardware manufacturer, and they're just getting, industry components so they can build their hardware.
Whatever they want.
Yep. Instead of going to Cisco, they're going to make their own stuff. It's like, they'd be like, well, I can't get you to make this stuff the way I want it to, so I'm just going to do it myself.
Well, they're taking a page from Google, right? I mean, that's what Google's been doing for a while. So.
Yep. Google's doing the same thing, going straight to the manufacturers of these the components and saying, hey, I want to build this. Give me your components, and I'll put it together myself. It's almost like a Lego.
What I'd almost like to see, and I know that Facebook doing their own hardware is really, really cool, but everybody's been talking a lot about basically software-defined everything. So while they're building their own hardware, and that's great, I'd love to see some sort of, I don't know, what kind of, this data fabric, it's all networking, software-defined networking. I want to see what they're doing. I want to see their product feature set. I would like to see them do some sort of open source the whole thing, because I doubt they will. But, Facebook open source version for everybody else to take a look at and see how that can contribute to projects like OpenStack that also has massive scalability and massive involvement. I think something like that would be really interesting.
Maybe they'll take it that way someday. Would be nice. The other thing I thought was really cool was a lot of the automation. Like, they put a lot of thought into the design of this. One of the things that stood out to me was like how, so if something fails, obviously it'll fail over, but then they put like learning into it and make sure that if it happens, again, it can fix itself, was one thing. And they even mentioned like using robot technology to go in and fix things. That's awesome. I want a robot to fix
my data center.
Yeah.
I'm just going to walk up to the data center with like this cute little bag and unleash the robot, and it's going to go automate everything for me. And my robot overlords will fix the data centers. That would be really cool.
Yes. They're like little transformers, you just walk in, throw them out, and they just start doing stuff for you.
Emad, are you working on your data center robot to help you out with your customer there in Dallas? I think we might have lost him again.
Oh.
Oh, that's okay. Well, anyway, it's about 10:45. Thank you for spending this evening with us. We won't be coming to you next Thursday evening because it's Thanksgiving in the United States, so we'll all be celebrating. But we'll be back December 4th, same time, 10:15 Eastern, with a great new show for you. Thank you, everybody, again for joining and spending your evening with us. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night.